This is the primal scream of a dying regime.
Pray for our enemies, because we're going medieval on these people. You're just not got a free shot on all these networks lying about the people. The people have had a belly full of it. I know you don't like hearing that. I know you try to do everything in the world to stop that, but you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen.
And where do people like that go to share the big lie? MAGA media. I wish in my soul, I wish that any of these people had a conscience.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Monday, 10 August, year of our Lord, 2026. Thank you for sticking around for the second half of the late afternoon, early evening show of the War Room. We're now going to go to the set of the Odyssey. Matt Damon is with us. Oh, my mistake. That is Matt. Boy, I thought I see the. Where in the hell are you, brother? I mean, I say I got Boyle coming in from Greece, and it looks like I'm on the set of the Odyssey. I got Matt Damon, coming. I got Odysseus coming up with Agamemnon from the Sea with Achilles. What's going on?
I'm on the island. I'm on the island of Rhodes. This is the third island I've been to in the last week. I arrived in Greece last Sunday and spent a couple days in Athens, including with the migration minister, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a minute. But then I went to the islands of Lemnos, Crete, and now here in Rhodes, and then we're going to end up in Mykonos later in the week. So quite a journey here across the Greek islands. Your point about the Odyssey and the big film, I'll tell you this, I have not met a single person in Greece, and I know many of them, that think that was a good movie. Not one. Everybody thinks it was an insult. Wow. There wasn't a single Greek cast in that film. By the way, there are tons of Greek actors and actresses that I know who would have done a far better job than Matt Damon or anyone else that Christopher Nolan cast in that film. It appears as though Christopher Nolan made that film, and he does this with all of his films, so that way it can go big in China. That's what everybody's been saying to me, is that that's what it's all about, is, get as big as an audience as you can in the United States and then go across the Chinese theaters.
Did he ever reach out? I was kind of shocked, particularly given that, all the great Greek, drama is not Shakespeare. Shakespeare, learned from the Greeks. The Greeks are the ones that taught us tragedy. The Greek acting, all the amphitheaters you have in ancient Greece. The Greek actors are the best in the world, some of the best in the worord. To your knowledge, did he reach out to anybody? And then if you think, hey, not just the acting, but the warrior scenes, right? Did he reach out to anybody? Was there any development at all of trying to make?
Not that I've heard. Not that I've heard. It's insulting. I think you had on Andy Zamanides recently from the Greek American lobby, and he was making fun of it on your show too. And I'm telling you right now, it is a punchline here. Like, people don't think that that was an honest production of the Odyssey, and so it may be an entertaining film. I don't know. I haven't seen it, but people are pretty ticked off with and peeved at Christopher Nolan over all of that. So, but again, just that's typical Hollywood, I guess.
Well, it's one of the foundational texts of the West, and it teaches us. The journey of Odysseus, of Ulysses, I guess in the Latin, is one of the foundational elements. It shows you the importance of the region.
People are very proud of the classics in their history here, right? Like, to be clear, they love their history. They love the classics. I'm staying here on the island of Rhodes with the vice president of the governing party of Greece, Adonis Georgiadis. He's also the health minister here in Greece. And by the way, he's a huge fan of yours, Steve, and I know we got to get him on the War Room eventually. So I talked to him about it earlier today. And he's in. So we'll make it happen. But I know all of his kids are named after ancient Greek, classic Greek, heroes and big names. And so you should talk to him about this, because he's a big time historian in addition to being, the health minister and the vice president and the governing party here.
Athens, Rome, and Jerusalem. I mean, that's the foundation of the foundational elements of the West. I know when you were back a couple of months ago and we talked to you, there was a great concern about, and this was really at the beginning, the Gaza and everything was happening in Gaza and the bombing that we did in the 12-day war. I mean, we had you on, last year, and when you were in Greece, and people were very concerned then. Seeing what's happened with this response by the Persians over the weekend, which is nothing more than a slap in the face to President Trump and the administration. I mean, the terms are so outrageous. Also, given the military and kinetic activity around Odessa on the Ukrainian-Russian front, is there a concern in Greece now that since Netanyahu has, the last 48 hours, we've had a rejection of Netanyahu of the American 15-point peace plan. We've had essentially a rejection of the United States by the Persians and this outrageous deal that they've put forward on Hormuz and so much else. And we've had an increase looking at kinetic activity, which continues to intensify between Ukraine and the Russians, and now it's down to the Black Sea. Is there a concern in Greece about those two conflicts starting to merge, and we actually have a much more dangerous situation on a kinetic side than we've had before, sir?
Well, I remember we talked about this when the last time I was on with you, right before I came back over here. And by the way, I'm telling you right now, my Greek friends, who are very close with both our Israeli friends and our Ukrainian friends, they're both in this region of the world, the East Mediterranean, if you will, right? It's a 2-hour flight from here to Tel Aviv. It's not that far up to Ukraine north. And frankly, we're shipping American natural gas into Ukraine via Greece, right? So this has been a big thing of the Trump second term, is that our energy companies in the United States have been using what's called the vertical corridor, and they're shipping American natural gas over to Greece that lands in a port in northern Greece and then goes up through Eastern Europe into Ukraine. I'm telling you right now, they think these things are merged, right? Like not that they might become merged, but that they are. And it is the West versus, I don't know what you want to call it. Do you want to call it the adversaries of the West? Do you want to call it a new axis, a second Cold War? And frankly, we see the connections between the Russians, the Iranians, and frankly the Chinese Communist Party are as plain as day. In fact, the other day, I met with a Ukrainian Greek. By the way, a lot of people in this region of the world live in both countries, or they have stuff going on in multiple different places. So I met with a businessman who is Greek on the island of Lemnos, who also has deep ties into Ukraine. And, one of the things he was showing me was all about how the North Koreans are now sending help to the Russians in the Ukrainian conflict. So what we're seeing is the bad guys, if you will, in the world, and the good are teaming up, right? Like they're working more and more closely together, and so on and so forth. Now the question becomes, do the good guys do that? I don't know, right? And so right now, your point about Iran, I think they went even further than what you said. I just saw something a few minutes ago before we came on here where they were talking about how they intend to not negotiate with the United States, and they are laughing at Trump, and they will not talk to the United States until January 21st, or January 20th, 2029. In other words, they're saying they're going to wait out the entire Trump administration. So Iran wants to nullify the rest of Trump's administration and then just play this game of back and forth, cat and mouse, where they, close, open the strait, back and forth, and they just want to grind Trump down, right? So what is the West going to do in response to this? What is President Trump going to do? Is going to, frankly, define the challenges that, are right now, that we face right now in this moment, but beyond that moving forward as well. And then do our friends and allies in places elsewhere across the world, around the world, like Europe, engage more.
Let's go back. Let's go back. Let's go back to the very beginning of this, to the Odyssey.
Yeah.
Why do we still, besides the lessons of character and formation of the West, that took place, I don't know, 2,500 years ago, 3,000 years ago, 3,500. Troy is essentially Turkey. Or parts of Turkey, before the Kurds came over. And Greece is Greece. These folks have been fighting in this region for thousands of years. And let me give everybody in the War Room Posse a newsflash right now. Take your number 2 pencil out and write this down. They're going to be fighting each other thousands of years in the future. It's a ceaseless, endless war with intermittent breaks of peace by long contracts of war. To get us again in this area that, thank God, we were able to extract ourselves after World War II without any real combat over in that part of the world from American troops or American involvement, or just, monetary and material involvement, is now an open-ended. If you get sucked up into Ukraine, it's open-ended. If you get sucked up into Gaza, it's open-ended. And the Persians just told you, whether they effectuate this or not, their attitude is they're winning and they can deal with Trump on their terms. This is beyond quagmire. I mean, this is just what sucks you in with a country 40 trillion in debt that has a bigger threat internally with Manbani and Abdul in Michigan and Tallarico in Texas and 20 of our 25 major cities that we don't control, Matt, as you know, and you guys, particularly the great coverage you guys do on immigration at Breitbart. We got enough problems. So how are we able to support our allies without getting any more sucked in or direct involvement, whether it's the Ukraine, whether it's the Greater Israel Project, or whether it's with the Persians? Sir.
Well, there's the $40 trillion question there, Steve. Right? I don't know. I wish I knew the answer to that. I think that one of the reasons why people trusted President Trump over other establishment Republicans in the 2016 election, as well as again in the 2024 election, is because they looked at President Trump and they saw someone, and he was very clear about this, who was not in favor of forever wars, right? So there are obvious, clear national security reasons for why the president did what he did, and I understand that. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. Totally agree with him on that. But at the same time, he's got to figure out what does the diplomatic pathway look like from here moving forward, and how does he extract us out of this, because this is why he was elected. He wasn't elected to do what he did back at the beginning of March when he decided to go to war and to go wipe out Iran's nuclear program. By all accounts, he's succeeded. Iran's nuclear program is finished. It is no more. They're years away from rebuilding it if they ever could. So mission accomplished, Mr. President, in that regard. The reason why, and by the way, to be clear, any of the other Republicans who were on the stage in 2016 or 2024, from Jim Gilmore to Ted Cruz to Marco Rubio to Jeb Bush to Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, they all would have done what Trump did at the start of this thing. They probably would have sent in ground forces, right? So why Trump was elected is what he does now. From now moving forward. First off, keep us out of there from getting sucked in with ground forces. He's done a remarkable job and shown incredible restraint in that respect. But then what does he do diplomatically here? How does he use the tools that he has at his disposal in the art of the deal to get us out of this quagmire and to keep us from turning this into another Iraq or worse than that? So that is the difference. That is what separates Trump from the rest of the establishment Republicans, or from the establishment Republicans that he beat and vanquished in the 2016 and 2024 elections. So again, I am convinced that any of the other Republicans, maybe save for Rand Paul, would have, that he's run against in primaries and defeated, would have done what he did at the start of this thing. What at the end of it, though, is what separates him from the rest of them, right? The rest of them would send us to war and have troops there on the ground. They'd be sending in ground invasions and so on and so forth. Trump shows restraint. That's what people want. So that, yes, if you poll the question, should Iran have a nuclear weapon? 85% of Americans agree, no, Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. They agree with the president. The president got that done. But you also poll the question, do we want to be at war with Iran never ending? Also, 85% of Americans would probably agree, no, we don't want to be at war with Iran in a never-ending way. So how the president walks this line, this tightrope, is going to define his presidency, right? Like, it really is. So he's got a major challenge ahead of him between now and the midterm elections, and frankly, this is going to be the biggest story of the midterm elections. Everybody knows the impact that the war in Iran is having on our energy prices, on our gas prices, on our economy, and it's going to continue to have a major impact for the rest of this year. In addition to that, it's also going to have an impact beyond the midterm elections. As I just said, the Iranians are already out there saying they're going to grind him down all the way through the rest of his term, right? Like, and by the way, they fully will intend to do that. So what does Trump do from here? Right? Like, I think this is the moment. This is the reason why we elected him. What does he do? And how does he get us out of this mess? That's going to be important. By the way, the other side, these radical leftists that you're talking about, like the Abdul al-Sayeds and all these characters that are running, they're running 100% on attacking Trump over the war. But again, all of those people, had they been in power, the flip side of the coin, and we saw this during the Obama administration, when Obama made the terrible deal with Iran, and I remember being there with President Trump and a number of other people, including Mark Levin and Ted Cruz and others, at the anti-Iran deal rally in 2015, when they all were there criticizing Obama's deal with Iran, because what did that do? It put Iran on a glide path to a nuclear weapon. So Trump is the middle line here, right? Like, so what we can't do is go to the place where Iran has a nuclear weapon, because what are they going to do? They're going to use it. They're crazy people, right? So how does Trump handle this and walk this line? It is
Why do you say, hang on,
Yeah.
ho, slow down. How do you say they're crazy when I would argue that since they've been around for 3,500 years, and to note, I believe even before or at the same time or right around the Trojan War, the first people to take on the Persians were the Greeks. Right, we've got a long history of the Persians and the Greeks getting it on.
Passive Thermopylae, right?
The Persians in this have not acted crazy at all. I would actually argue that, and remember, I guess it was chess that was created in Persia. If you go back and look at this, which is an existential crisis for them, they've been pretty crafty or cunning. You may not agree with how they've done it, but here they are still in a position to send the president an insulting offer with this Hormuz deal and with this and then to basically say, hey, look, Trump, upon further review, we don't care about the midterms. In fact, we don't even care about your elections, but we're not dealing with you. We're going to wait for the next occupant there. That has, in their strategic logic, a certain industrial logic to it. It hangs together. So how do you say, the Mark Levin and all these guys say they're crazy people. They act anything but. And of course, pursuing a nuclear weapon in today's world is a smart type of statecraft. When you stop doing it, somehow you end up paying a price. I don't want people to have nuclear weapons. I certainly don't want the Persians to have a nuclear weapon. In no case, given where the development plan was, would I've ever gone to the type of war that we're doing. And President Trump, to me, on the end of the 12-day war, forever, it was total obliteration. There's some other aspects of it, but that's not where we're in here. Let's be honest. We got dragged into this war by the Israelis, and we need a full First of all, we need a full investigation on October 7th. If Netanyahu's government's not going to do it, we have to demand that we have our own, number one, about how that whole thing came down and how they were caught by surprise. And was there any involvement or foreknowledge by any elements of the Israeli intelligence apparatus or the military or the political, because those are still open questions, right? We also have to find out what intelligence was given to the president of the United States before we went to phase two, Matt, as you and I talked about, because it was upon intelligence that the president decided to move. And of course, the Israelis who today or over the weekend said, hey, Trump, all the work you've done on the peace board, all the work you've done in Gaza, your idea about Qatar underwriting it and Turkey supplying the security, and that and you would basically create a two-state solution in Israel. We're not interested. In fact, we're not interested in any of it. We're not going to do any of it. So, I mean, we're in a jam because people that are supposed to be either our vassal states, protectorates, and or allies seem to have their own opinions, and now we're kind of wrapped around the axle on it. Matt Boyle.
Yeah, I would say a couple of things here. First off, I don't think that the president, Steve, would do anything that, sorry, there's people out and around here, so it's a little loud.
That's okay.
I don't think that the president would do anything that he didn't want to do. So I know that there's folks out there that are arguing that that Bibi tricked him into it or got him to do it or something like that. I don't think that's the case. I think the president would do what he did this on his own. He made his decision. Yeah, I mean, I sat with the president and had lunch with him with the entire rest of the National Press Corps, senior broadcasters and whatnot, right before he gave the State of the Union address. And he laid out for us during that lunch, and it's been well reported since then, exactly what he was going to do. And they ended up doing it, right? And so the mess that we're in, again, I do think that the president made this decision. I don't think he was pushed into it by the Israelis. I think that he made his own decision, and that is abundantly clear. Now, to your point too, I would also say that yes, Midnight Hammer last summer had a major impact on the nuclear program. The strikes this year have had more of an impact on the nuclear program. It doesn't appear that they're going to be able to build a nuclear weapon anytime soon. So I think in that regard, that's what I was saying before in the previous segment about how this is mission accomplished. But again, you're not wrong in the sense of he's got to figure out a way out of this. So he's got to get out of this mess at this point and figure out how do we get there. And also places like Iran are just going to try to wait him out. And this is going to hurt his credibility when he's trying to negotiate ends to things like the war in Ukraine and things like other peace deals around the world. So what he's got to do is he's got to grind this out to the end as fast as possible and get it over with and get it in the rearview mirror. How does he do that? I don't know. Great question, but he's got to get it done. Get it over with.
In the next segment, I'm going to get into the politics and all, but before I leave, you got a couple minutes here. Let's leave aside what the Greeks say about this for a second. But is your observation, having spent a good part of the last couple of years in the region, is Turkey an ally of the United States? Is Turkey someone you can depend upon in the region? Or is Turkey to be determined? Is it part of this quasi-access? Is it on its own? What's your assessment? Because so much, quite frankly, we look at it, rests upon the relationship with Turkey. Your thoughts?
Yeah. A very complicated question. Look, the Greeks would say no, right? That you can't trust the Turks. Obviously, they lived under Ottoman occupation for hundreds of years. Turkey is now what's left over of the Ottoman Empire. Frankly, there's a lot of reasons why you can't trust the Turks, right? President Trump in his first term pulled them out of the F-35 program. Now, he was saying the other day, a few weeks ago when he was in Turkey and in Ankara at the NATO summit, that he was going to put them back in, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen with Congress and so on and so forth. So they're not the most trustworthy people in the world, and so I don't really know. Now, there's a really interesting development that happened here that people are talking about here the last couple of days, is that there's a new trilateral agreement, speaking of Turkey, with Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan, where they made the three countries got together to form a defense pact. So that's a very, very fascinating development. And there's questions as to whether or not that means that Saudi Arabia is moving further away from Israel, or if Saudi Arabia is bringing Pakistan and Turkey closer to Israel. We don't really kind of know how that...
Hold it. Let's take a flash vote on that here in the war room. I think it would be the former. I don't see
so
Pakistan and Turkey. I don't think Pakistan, Turkey,
I think so too. But what I'm telling you is that the Turkey, look. But the fact is that Turkey is in NATO. It's also technically not in Europe, right? So it's not a member of the European Union, but it is in NATO. The Turks will argue that they're on President Trump's side, and so on and so forth. But I don't know if you can trust.
He's
Erdogan,
close.
So.
He's close. He's close to Erdogan. Matt, hang on for a second. I'm going to find out how this. We're now going to pivot because Matt's the national political editor of Breitbart, one of the most powerful news sites out there. We're now going to pivot after a short commercial break. We're going to come back and talk about the Persians know what they're doing. They're saying, hey, you're all worried about the midterms. And, well, guess what? The United States is involved here through the midterms. In fact, they're taking it more broadly and saying, we're not going to deal with the administration. We're going to deal with the next administration. And they're essentially saying we're going to work like a Trojans to make sure the next administration is not MAGA. In fact, is anti-MAGA. Matt Boyle with us from Greece, from the islands. We're going to take a short commercial break. Birch Gold, understand what it all means for you. You need a still point in a turning world. Gold's been kind of active lately, but it's not the short-term trading or the price of gold on any one day. It's directionally, where is all this going? End of the dollar empire. 6 years. We've been putting out now 8 free installments. You can get 7 of them in a bound edition. Put your name on the list. Go to birchgold.com/Bannon. End of the dollar empire. Talk to Philip Patrick and the team. Make sure you go to Citizens Free Press. He had all those great headlines up today, particularly the Washington Post editorial about the $40 trillion debt. Make sure you read it. You'll want to find out more about gold afterwards. Short break.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
So, Matt, given your sense of the politics here, I mean, we essentially have you mentioned how the Marxist jihadists, that part of the Democratic Party, will respond to this. We essentially have a nullification project worse than John C. Calhoun in the United States right now. I keep saying the problems in our country ain't in downtown Tehran. The problems in our country are manifested in downtown, in Manhattan, Midtown Manhattan. We have insurrectionists everywhere. We have nullification everywhere. We can't send ICE in anywhere. Minneapolis, Chicago, New York City, Boston, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland. I'm just naming a random list of some of the greatest cities in the world, not even the United States, in the world. These are amazing cities. They're now all sanctuary cities. We can't even send ICE in. And now we're 80-some days away from a midterm election. Your assessment of all of it, sir?
Yeah, by the way, all of those cities are like what would be a world great city, right? Most of these countries that I'm going to, they have one such big city, right? Like here in Greece, it's Athens, right? Like in Serbia, which I went to a few months ago, it's Belgrade, right? Like each country has like one big city. We have like dozens of huge, amazing cities in our country, and it's sad to see them all, or for the most part, led by these radical leftist Democrats who are refusing to cooperate with the federal government and enforce our immigration laws, among other things. The fact is that ahead of our midterm elections, look. I wouldn't bet at this point. I would say it's probably the Democrats are probably favored to take the House. It's probably been the case for a while now. As for the Senate, I wouldn't give up, right? Like, I still think it's worth fighting for. As for the Senate, I think the Republicans can hold the Senate, but they're going to have a much harder fight on their hands than they realize. And I'm not getting the sense from Senate Republicans that they're fighting as hard as they should be. It's plain and simple.
Matt, brother, they just went on. They're going to be joining you in Greece tomorrow. They just went on a 6-week vacation. They left without dealing with the Save America Act. And you'll be glad to know that today they went through a pro forma session. So as you know, because you've covered this now since day one in the first Trump term, there's not been one day that President Trump, as president of the United States, that they've actually had because of Mitch McConnell's edict,
recess, so we can't
when
do
the Republicans call, there no recess. And by the way, it didn't happen to Reagan. It didn't happen to Bush 41. Didn't happen to Bush 43. This is an insult. So they just went on vacation with a fare thee well, not dealing with anything President Trump said. So how can you expect people to get motivated? I mean, MAGA's depressed about the Senate right now, sir.
But they're not on recess. They're in pro forma session mode, right? Like, to be clear. And it's a middle finger to President Trump because, and by the way, no American president has ever faced what President Trump is facing right now from the U.S. Senate. Ever. Like, this is unprecedented in the American Republic. The Constitution provides for processes for when Congress is on recess. So what they're doing is they are rigging the system so they aren't technically on recess, even though they should be technically on recess. And so in so doing, President Trump can't make recess appointments and do other things that a president has powers to do when Congress is actually on recess. And so it is a middle finger insult from the Senate Republicans to President Trump. And frankly, I mean, look, there's a lot of good Republican senators, right? Like, there are a lot of good ones. They are fighting for the good things, and I want to be clear, they deserve all the credit in the world. Guys like Mike Lee, Rick Scott. By the way, speaking of the Turkey ally question that you asked in the last segment, Rick Scott came out and said that Turkey is not our ally, right? Like, he said that while I was here. It was a huge deal. People were talking about it. Again, there's a lot of good senators, and those two are two of the very good ones. There's also some, establishment guys in the Senate. Frankly, let's be honest about it. It's about half and half right now in the Senate Republican Conference. Give or take a handful one way or the other. And do they deserve another majority?
Hang on. I got to bring up an unpleasant topic. Yeah. And by the way, Rick Scott was about the F-35 program. I think Senator Scott was pretty adamant Turkey's not an ally. In fact, I'll put something about that after the show. I want to go back. You say, is the Senate right now, in your assessment, you're the national political editor for Breitbart. You're saying it's 50% kind of for Trump and 50% at least against Trump.
I'm talking about the Republicans.
Republicans. No, this is what I'm saying. Republicans. I forget the Democrats. They're 100% against. But this is what befuddles me. And maybe you can make it clear. All of those in the Senate had President Trump's endorsement. You cannot win a Republican primary as a senator unless you have the endorsement of Donald J. Trump. We just saw that in Louisiana. We saw it in Texas, right? We saw it in North Carolina. Tillis knew he wasn't going to get it. So please riddle me this. How did we get a situation in the Senate that President Trump he's made these people, he's supported these people, he's fundraised for these people, he's gone and done rallies for these people, he's given them money, he's given them attention, he's profiled them, he said great things about them, and at least 50% of them hate him with a burning passion that they would work to humiliate him on this situation of the pro forma sessions. Matt Boyle, your thoughts and observations on this topic.
Yeah, so you're telling me that U.S. senators and career politicians would lie to the president? My gosh, right? Like, wow, this is news to me, right? Like, so they'll go and say one thing to the voters and to the president and then do another thing when the cameras aren't on them and the spotlight's not on them. Wow, that's shocking, right? Like, by the way, I see it all the time. There are plenty of U.S. senators who will run to President Trump and then also to the public. By the way, when you're talking to President Trump, it's like talking to the public because he represents the base, right? Like, he is the base. He is the voter. He's the War Room audience viewer. He's the Breitbart reader, right? Like, that's who Trump is, right? Like, so they'll say one thing to President Trump and to the public and on camera, and then they'll do another thing behind closed doors. That's the U.S. Senate for you, right? Like, they're dishonest. They're career politicians. They're bad people.
In normal times, the basic dishonesty of these people and acting like politicians we could handle. But we're in a fight for the direction of this country. This is why, for other people taking bigger picture things and putting out manifestos or grand strategy, hey, that's fine. There's a like Ecclesiastes says, there's a time and place for all that. But right now, we're in a fight for the survival of this country, and it goes through some essential political power. We have the Senate, we have the House, a tenuous grasp on it. People are not happy. I'm not happy. I hate most of the stuff that's going on, but you still have, at least as a defense mechanism, not letting Mandami and not letting Abdul and not letting Talarico and the people in back of them get the levers of power in the national capital. We're in as tough a dogfight as I've ever seen in the entire, 10, 15 years you and I have been working together.
What you just laid out there is the best case for the Republicans to hold their majority in the House of Representatives, which is a defensive mechanism against the radical left. Republicans hold the House and the Senate, right? Like, so which makes a defensive mechanism against the radical left. Because frankly, I don't know if either chamber's majority has earned, in my estimation, less than 100 days now. What are we, 90, 80 something days to the midterm elections? I don't know if either chamber's majority has genuinely earned another majority, right? Like, and so frankly, the best case for holding the majorities in both chambers is to stop the radical left. That's the case the Republicans should be making out there right now. That's what they should be going out there and doing.
Matt, how do you make this case? You and I have been pounding this, war toxin for a long time. It's one of the reasons we initially were very attracted to the helped create populist national. We're very attracted to President Trump as a non-politician, stepped in here as a disruptor, which he did magnificently. I think he's one of the top three presidents, along with Washington and Lincoln, in American history, for all his faults. And he knows he's got faults. For all his faults, Lincoln had faults, Washington had faults, Trump's got them, but they still one of the three greatest presidents.
There's only one person in the history of the world that doesn't have faults, Steve, right? There's only one.
Exactly.
So,
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Matt, so help me out here, though. How do you make that case when the controlled opposition Republican Party, if it's not MAGA, the controlled opposition Rhino and Republican Party led us to this path? They're the ones that allowed radical Democrats to hide in plain sight and to make policy and to have these budgets and to pay for all this, have the NGOs, all the nightmare that is Washington, from USAID to so much more, to do the basic invasion of the country. They kind of stood by and just with their thumbs in their mouths until the fighters of MAGA and the fighters of populist national and the ultimate fighter, the armor-piercing shell of Trump, who they hate and are looking forward to getting rid of. So how can they make an argument as the controlled opposition that allowed this to happen, that they're the defenders against this, sir?
Well, they really can't, right? Like, so I think that what's going on here, frankly, is that the establishment Republicans, this gets back to what we were talking about in the first segment, about why Trump was elected and why he won versus the other Republicans in the Republican primaries in 2016, 24. What separates him from them, they all want to go back to that. They all want to go back to the days of Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan, John McCain, George Bush, where it's just typical establishment Republicans doing Chamber of Commerce, open borders things, and doing stuff with the globalist elites, forever wars, all that kind of thing. They're just trying to wait out the clock on Trump and grind his movement into submission and then just return back and act like this was a scary nightmare that they woke up from. I think they're genuinely wrong. I think that the coalition that President Trump has assembled, the MAGA Maha coalition, if you will, is frankly unstoppable if held together or reassembled in the future. And I'm confident that somebody will hold it together or reassemble it in the future. In addition to that, that MAGA Maha coalition that President Trump has put together, it really has its roots all the way back in Nixon, right? Like, so it's not so much the Reagan coalition. There's similarities between Trump and Reagan. But Trump's coalition, the people that powered him into the White House, looks a lot more like Nixon's in the late 60s, early 70s. and frankly, I think it will stand the test of time. I think it will hold it together. And so what these establishment Republicans want to do is they want to re-hijack the Republican Party and go back to the gracefully losing to the left type of a situation. And the reason why is part of the reason why I'm here, right? Like, so one of the big stories I did when I'm here, it was a big thing with the migration minister here in Greece, and I've been covering this kind of stuff for a while. What Trump did was he electrified the world on migration. These guys, these globalist elites, they like open borders. They want open borders. Why do they want open borders? Because then they can keep wages down, right? And when you're talking about people that, employ, hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of people around the world, every dollar that they can pay less every hour to an hourly worker, or every $10,000 less every salaried worker or something, it adds up, right? Like, and so if they can juice the system and have these open borders policies worldwide, then what happens is it drives the wages down of the workers that they employ. And that's what they care about. It's all about the Benjamins. It's all about the money, right? Like, and so that's what they want. They want to go back to that. And what Trump did, especially in his 2024 election, especially after what we saw under Biden with 10 to 20 million migrants coming in from the third world into the United States, it was the whole rest of the world. So here in Greece, they've totally, they have massively new hardcore restrictions that are also, they frame it as strict but fair policy, where they've significantly cut down the flow of migration into this country. Similar types of things in other countries across Europe, with the exception of Spain, right? Spain is the kind of the exception to the rule, but Italy, France, Holland, etc., all of these places have put in new, tougher restrictions to varying degrees. Even the European Union, right? Like, even the European Union has. And so, and who's responsible for that? Donald Trump, right? Like, so what these globalist elites want to do is grind out President Trump's the rest of his term, and then hope that they can push his movement off into the dustbin of history, the ash heap of history, and then go back to the old ways of open borders and endless wars. That's what they want, right? And so their hope is that they can get there. So these are the challenges that President Trump faces. So again, to wrap it all up of everything that we're talking about here, Steve, he's got to get out of Iran. He's got to figure out how do we pull that off. He's got to get a peace deal in Ukraine, and then he's got to and figure out how do we get there in such a way that helps our friends in Ukraine. We love the Ukrainians, right? They're awesome, but we got to end that thing. And then he's got to get back to deport. That's it. That he does that, he's unstoppable. Unstoppable.
Yeah. I really like the Ukrainian people and their fight, but it's not our fight. And man, Zelensky is as bad as it comes, but we'll leave that topic for a different day. Matt Boyle, you've become an expert in that region, given the time you spent, and geopolitically, you're as smart as anybody. Give me just a heads up of where, in an unclassified setting, your travels over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, I've got some other things planned here in Greece. I'm possibly also going to other places throughout the East Mediterranean. As I mentioned there, we did a big story with the migration minister here in Greece. It's gotten a lot of attention. President Trump put it up on True Social. So I encourage people to read that, because it's encouraging what's happening here in the region around the world, but also possibly other places throughout the Middle East in the coming weeks or months as well. So a lot of exciting things on the horizon. So I'll leave it at that for now, because there's certain things are not 100% yet.
As you know, we launched Breitbart Jerusalem and Breitbart London with Raheem, and Breitbart Rome with Tom Williams, and I've got I've got Ben Harnwell, my international editor, is in Rome and has a show every day at 3 days a week at 6 o'clock. When you're ready, and you feel like covering Breitbart geopolitically from the world, when you're ready to do War Room Athens, we're open for business. So just let me know when
we'll see. Down the road, it will probably end up happening. We're talking to the Greeks about doing a big Breitbart event in Athens early next year. So we're working on that right now. It should be exciting, and exciting things on the horizon. I really do want to go to Jerusalem and Israel. That's on the horizon probably, and then also several other places.
Well, your reporting is always amazing, and we love the insights. Tell everybody including the vice president and his family. Thank you for setting this up. We really love the insights. The audience loves your reports, and very perceptive on a Monday, brother, that had a lot of activity over the weekend and a lot of activity in that part of the world. So thank you very much for joining us. One more time, social media, where they get all your great reporting over at Breitbart, and how do folks put Breitbart up on their phones and their computers as part of their daily media diet?
Yeah, just Breitbart.com, and then I'm on X, Twitter at mboyle1, and then on True Social at Real Matt Boyle, and we got plenty of great stuff on all of those places.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate you. Appreciate you staying up. Matt Boyle in Greece. Heck of a week. Tomorrow, and really want to thank everybody on the 5 o'clock show too, and of course the big event this afternoon with Todd and over at Maine Justice. Tomorrow morning, we're going to get to CIS has got a report that's just out on one of the things that's been a huge deal with us. This is allowing foreign students into our universities and our best universities, their ability to use this concept called OPT, practical training to basically slide into the labor force without using the H-1B visa scam. It's another scam, so we're going to drill down all that. CIS has got an amazing report. We'll get to all of that tomorrow. Also, much more on artificial intelligence. Couldn't get to it today, but just amazing developments there that you need to know about. I want to thank also our sponsors, particularly at Birch Gold, now more than ever, with capital markets bouncing around, the bond market bouncing around, and as I say, the bond market's turfed out more governments than howitzers. So you got to keep your eye on the bond market. Now more than ever, you need a still point in a turning world. You need the information that Birch Gold can provide. This is why Philip Patrick comes on the show so often. Philip Patrick and his team. The easiest way maybe to get to them is take out the phone. Text Bannon, Bannon, that is your humble servant, 989898. You get the guide of investing in gold and precious metals in the age of Trump. You can learn so much from it. Remember, all the information, if you go to the Birch Gold website, it's all free and there's no obligation. What I love about no obligation, and you can talk to Philip as many times as you want and his team. He'll walk you through everything, particularly how you can get involved in physical gold. Now, they've got all types of tax deferred ways to do this, your IRA or 401k, all of it. But talk to Philip Patrick and get the full download. We've got a new number 9 installment coming for the End of the Dollar Empire. Couldn't be more timely. Looking forward to it. Okay. We're going to be back at 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time tomorrow morning. We're going to leave you with the amazing hit from Steve Gruber and the team, One Nation Under God. Take you out with that. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 10.